Hi, I'm Matt Garrett. I'm the founder here at FounderCo, and in this video, we're going to be covering what Techstars Startup Weekend is. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to cover in this video on Techstars Startup Weekend. First, we're going to cover is what is Techstars and what is Startup Weekend. Two, we're going to talk about how Startup Weekend works and how it all just comes together. And then third, why should you go to a Techstars Startup Weekend? So what is Techstars and what is Startup Weekend? Well, let's start with Techstars. Techstars is a startup accelerator and honestly is one of the best in the world. As Techstars puts it on their website, let's read right from their website. Each year, they choose over 500 early stage companies to join a 3-month mentorship-driven accelerator, investing $120,000 and providing hands-on mentorship and access to the Techstars network for life. Now, personally, I am a Techstars founder and I've gotten all those resources, and I can tell you they are some of the best resources you can actually have as a founder, especially if you're a first-time founder, which if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you are. Now, that's Techstars. What is Startup Weekend? Well, Startup Weekend is an entry point event for potential entrepreneurs. So if you're curious about entrepreneurship or anything like that, this is an event that happens all over the world that you can attend and really kind of dive right into startups and see if it's the right fit for you. Now, Startup Weekend, as they put it, is on their website again, is in just 54 hours, you'll experience the highs, lows, fun, and pressure that make up life at a startup. As you learn how to create a company, you'll meet the best mentors, investors, co-founders, and sponsors who are ready to help you get started. Your community is here to help you. Now, to finish up this section, Startup Weekend used to be an independent entity, but then the founders of Startup Weekend were they want to move on to something different and different startups. So they did that, and then Techstars actually ended up taking over Startup Weekend. And really for Techstars, it's a great fit for them because that helps them get more companies or really help with their deal flow and get potential companies into Techstars accelerator programs, which is now starting to happen more and more often. Okay, now how does Techstars Startup Weekend actually work and how does it all come together? Well, each of these Techstars Startup Weekend events are led by what they call organizers. And organizers are typically people that are part of entrepreneurial support organizations that are helping to build their entrepreneurial community. Now, these organizers have to fundraise because there's some money that it takes to run this event, such as food, and in particular, the facilitator that you have to bring in as part of Startup Weekend. And these facilitators, they go around the world and actually put on these these Startup Weekend events. Now, typically, it's not just a free event for founders to be a part of. Tickets are typically about $50 to $100, and this really depends on what kind of event you're going to, how good the food is, and everything else, because the organizers can kind of set this themselves. And sometimes the organizers will just pay for the tickets themselves, or they give out a bunch of free tickets too. Now, the overall schedule of the event is that it starts at about usually 6 o'clock on a Friday night and doesn't end until about Sunday night at 5 o'clock or so. So it's a full weekend event. Now, to start out, Friday night is an exciting night because everyone's coming in, excited. They have all these different ideas, and they're excited to meet new people. So you have that going on. You all have dinner together. People go up and pitch their ideas in 60 seconds. And after everyone's pitched, everyone breaks into teams depending on how many people are there. So if there's 100 people, they usually have about 10 teams, maybe even more than that. It really depends on the facilitator and how big the teams should be. But usually the teams are about 5 people or so, about that size. Now, once the teams are decided, they usually say good night, have a good night, and we'll see you bright and early on Saturday morning. On Saturday is essentially a work day where you can meet with mentors, you can talk with potential customers, and build a prototype if you can. Saturday is a day to really just get a ton of work done because the end goal of Startup Weekend is to actually have a startup, or at least have a formation of a good foundation for a startup there. And you want to be able to test it out so you can go pitch it on Sunday. And that's exactly what Sunday is. Sunday is a day where you finish up what you weren't able to finish on Saturday, and then go and pitch it in front of usually a panel of judges to help rate you against the different startup ideas that everyone's working on that weekend. Now, there's usually a small prize that goes to the top 3 or so of Startup Weekend ideas. So if you did you did all these customer interviews, you've proved that there's validation, and maybe it's a simple prototype, you have a really good shot at winning something, even with the simple prize of, maybe you won a free gift card or anything like that. Sometimes if it's co-working space, putting on the event, they usually will give you maybe like a free membership for a month or something like that. Then after this, okay. So after the weekend's concluded, you might have a startup that you can actually work on. And this usually isn't the case. Usually, people are just coming in, they want to just get their feet wet with entrepreneurship, and that's totally great. But sometimes there is a great startup that you've built out, or at least have kind of formed in some form, in some fashion. And so some people want to continue with it. And that's awesome. That's what the startup weekend is for. So you might have a shot at actually creating a startup and actually building a team that weekend, which is awesome. So just keep that in mind if you decide to join a startup weekend event. The last part of this video on Techstars Startup Weekend is why should you actually go to a Techstars Startup Weekend? Now, the first part is that if you're a first-time founder or really just curious about entrepreneurship, this is a great way to see if startups and the startup lifestyle is for you. Startups are hard work, they're not for the faint of heart, and this is a great way to see if you actually want to go through all that, because essentially you're building a startup, or at least trying to form a startup in 3 days, it's about 2.5 days, where typically you'd build that in about months. So it's a great thing to see if you want to get your feet wet and actually to be an entrepreneur yourself. Now, the second part is that if you are, you're committed to being a part of entrepreneurship and you want to do it, this is a great way. And if you're new to the community or just trying to get connected to the community even more, startup weekends are a great way to actually connect more with mentors and entrepreneurial support organizations, and really just anyone in the entrepreneurial community, because they'll bring in other founders to be mentors. They'll bring in kind of everyone usually to help rally and just help build the ecosystem for startups. And lastly, if you know you want to be an entrepreneur, startup weekend, as we mentioned, can sometimes form really amazing startups. So if you're looking to be part of a startup and you don't have an idea, or you have an idea and you're looking for a team, startup weekend has a potential to give you the things that you need and the resources you need, especially as you meet with mentors and different organizations that are helping to put on these Techstars startup weekends. So there's a chance that it happens, but it's not a guarantee. Now, to give you some examples of companies that have come out of a Techstars startup weekend, these are actually pretty significant companies. Companies like Rover, Hydrate, Zapier have all come out of startup weekend in some fashion, which is really, really cool. So there's definitely a chance to build a really amazing startup out of a startup weekend, and just see where it goes. But most likely, you're really just going to get your feet wet with startups as part of a Techstars startup weekend. Well, I hope you loved this video on the Techstars startup weekend, what it's all about, and how it actually can be helpful to you as a first-time founder or even just a potential founder. Now, if you're looking for more content or more resources, we'd love to have you subscribe to this YouTube channel, or go check out our podcast, our new podcast called Founder Feedback, where we talk with experienced founders to help you go through the problems that you're facing in your startup. You can learn more by going to founderco.org. You also can always reach out to us at hello@founderco.org. We're always happy to help.